I just got her last weekend.
Oh yeah. Is this one of the ones we got at the flea market?
It is.
Sometimes you get just like a little bit loose, and then other times, as you can see, she's very, very loose. So we're gonna restring her today. You wanna make sure that it is as centered as possible. I tie it, oops. Ooh.
Uh-oh. Hello, Kathy. How you doing?
Hello, good.
Thank you for joining us. We've been having such a good time learning all about American Girl dolls through your eyes and with your information. You're the best. Thank you. So this is cool. Where are you going, Paul?
Right over here. Just picking her up.
Oh, okay. So Paul brought something for show and tell. Now, Paul, what has it been like for you just filming all these videos and doing all this stuff for virtual convention?
A new great experience.
Good.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm having a great time with it.
What's been one of your favorite parts? All of it.
All of it, and meeting different people that are interested in what I'm interested in. You know, I'm not the only one person. Lots of people like it.
Right, exactly. So at the museum event, you got to meet a lot of people that had your same ideas.
I did, yeah. Quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, that's good. So what did you just grab right here?
I just got her last weekend.
Oh, yeah. Is this one of the ones we got at the flea market?
It is.
Oh, yeah.
I cleaned her up and put a new outfit
She
on
looks
her.
good. That's a good video.
Truly me 60.
Truly Me 60. Did you know that?
I do now.
You do now, because of our wonderful Kathy. So, Kathy, this is so cool. You're going to give us a tutorial on something that is very common with American Girl dolls, and that is loose legs, loose limbs.
Yes. I'm going to show you how to restring them so they are like new.
Awesome.
So, you know, when you get an American Girl doll, if you get used or vintage dolls, you know, sometimes you have them where they're you know, fairly well strung, but they're not as tight as you would like. Sometimes you get just like a little bit loose, and then other times, as you can see, she's very, very loose. So we're gonna restring her today because she needs the whole shebang. She needs new elastic. I'm gonna show you how to go about doing that.
Yay! This is going to be so good. Paul, are you excited to learn this new skill?
I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I have to know how to do it.
Yeah, good.
All right, so first things, I'm going to cut off her limbs and clean them up and get them heating. I use a heating pad to soften the vinyl so that I can get the tension cups out of the limbs. And I want to get that started, and then I'll show you everything that you need in order to restring.
All right.
So I always cut the limbs off from the outside, and that's primarily because I have heard horror stories of people accidentally cutting the fabric on the body. So there's a lot less risk of damaging the doll by accident if you cut it from the outside. Sometimes it's hard to get the scissors in there to cut them loose if the doll is moderately tightly strung, but this one, obviously, because she's super duper loose, it's easy to get in there. But if you have a small pair of scissors, you get in there much easier. While I have the limbs off, I like to go ahead and clean them up because it's much easier to clean them when they are not attached to the body. So normally I would use baking soda to clean them. I do like a baking soda and water scrub, but since that's a little bit messy, I didn't bring that today. So I'm just using water wipes just to clean her up just a little bit. And then if there are stains that need to be removed, I would do that at this point now before restringing, because we use acne cream to bleach out stains in the vinyl, but it can bleach out the fabric on the body too. So I like to do that while the limbs are not attached.
Acne cream. Okay, that's a new
Yep,
one. Cool.
10% benzoyl peroxide.
All right. Good tips.
You leave it on for a little while in the heat, like either in a sunny window or carefully in a heating pad or underneath a reptile lamp, and it will over time bleach out the stains. So now that these guys are all clean, I'm going to go ahead and put them in the heating pad and set a timer for 20 minutes. I'll probably check them after about 15. Vintage dolls, late 80s, early 90s dolls are softer vinyl, and so they only take 10 to 15 minutes to get soft enough to restring, but the modern dolls take more like 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
We'll set it for 15 minutes. So while that is cooking, I'll show you everything that I use. Like I said, I have a nice small pair of scissors. I got this as part of a jewelry set. Honestly, this came with it too. This is a nice small, I think a 5-inch pair of, it might even be 4. It's little, a pair of needle nose pliers. It has a cutter in there, which is what I use to crimp the ferrules. So for restringing, you need 4mm elastic. Don't get the 3mm. It's too small. It's not strong enough. This has some nice strength to it, which is what you need to pull them nice and tight. And then these are 18-10 size. They're electrical crimp connectors. It's just a little tube. And then here, I'll show you real fast. When you get it on the elastic, you just smush it and just crimp the elastic so that it can't move. So that is the basics, and then everything else is inside the doll. So I always, when I unstuff, I always have a bowl or a bag ready to put all the stuffing in. So sometimes these knots are a little tough to get out, so I have a little tool. It actually came with a crafting set, I think, for doing like cricket crafting. So if you like hook it in there, it'll pull the knot out really easily if you're having a hard time picking the knot out. So once you get the knot out, the head pops off pretty easily, and then you can just start pulling all the stuff out.
Yikes, so we have to pull it all out?
Yes, it all has to come out, and you will not believe how much is in here. Sometimes it's like, I don't know how all of it fits back in, but it does. The older dolls, the newer dolls have this really soft poly fill. The older dolls have cotton fill, and it can vary a little bit what you find in. Sometimes you find stuff with like an actual, it almost looks like a dryer sheet. It's like backing on it. And it's just because with the older dolls, they stuffed whatever they had on hand into those dolls. So I always make sure that I put the exact same stuffing into the doll that came out of it, because I'm kind of a stickler for originality. So even if it looks weird, I put it back in. So you'll find 4 of these inside, and you need them, so set them aside.
Have you ever seen one being taken apart, Paul?
Not in person.
Wow.
I've done this before, but
You
I was about
have?
to say, because you've tightened them, so you've done
I've
it
tightened,
before.
but I haven't cut the cords or anything.
Oh yeah, so I should mention, a good thing to mention about tightening is that I'm not a fan. You do nearly the same amount of work, but you're reusing the old elastic and just pulling it tighter, but it's losing its elasticity. So it's never going to be as good as it would be if you just put new elastic in it. When you tighten, you're probably going to have to redo the same job in a year or two, so I much prefer to just go ahead and do it this way and do it right from the very beginning, because it is probably the most work to unstuff and restuff. Another thing to mention, sometimes with the more recent dolls, instead of a neck string, which is what this one has, instead of a neck string, you have a zip tie. So in order to get into her body, you need to snip these little stitches. And that allows you to separate that. And then again with the little scissors, don't use big desk scissors because you might snip something you don't mean to. You get in there, and sometimes it takes a minute. And you cut the zip tie, and then you can take the head off. Now, obviously in order to put her back together, you need neck string. So this is 2mm, and I've already got these cut so that they're the right length. 2mm macrame cord, but get the woven stuff, not the twisted, if you want to zoom in on that, because the twisted stuff will unravel. So in order to replace the zip tie with a neck string, typically what I do to make this easiest is I clip off the little end of this, and I take Scotch tape.
This is the brand of the piping cord that is used here. So
It is
take a screenshot.
nearly an identical replacement for what American Girl uses on their own. Thank you. The easiest way to replace the zip tie with a neck string is just to tape this little sucker on as tightly as you can so that the seams on the inside of the channel don't pull the string off. And then you just inch this along and it'll draw the string through the channel. So the seams are tricky. You'll have to kind of wiggle past the seams because that's where it catches. And if it's hard to do, just pull out some stuffing or do this while the body is unstuffed. And then pull gently so you don't lose the string. And there it is. And that's about 15 inches of string, and it's about the right length. So that's what to do if the doll has a zip tie instead of a neck string. At the very end of the video, I will talk all about restuffing because I think that is one of the hardest parts and actually what people struggle with the most. Restringing is easy once you get the hang of it, but restuffing is an art. So let's check on the limbs and see. This is on, I've got it in the heating pad on high, and we're waiting for this to finish up. This has been about 10 minutes, but as you can see, it's not quite as soft as I'd like. I probably could wrestle the cup out of there, but because I have to pull basically one of these out of that hole, I'd like this a little bit softer before I work on it. So if you see that, that's not quite the way it should be yet. So back in the heating pad it goes.
We're back with Kathy. Hey.
Yep. Hi. And I think these limbs are about ready to go.
They done cooking?
Yep, nice and soft, so it'll be pretty easy to get those out. So real fast, I'm gonna make sure I've got everything I need because once you pull them out of the heating pad, they do start cooling down pretty quickly, and then you might not be able to finish the job. So let's see, 6, 7, 8. Hemostat's handy, this, and I'm gonna go ahead, you know, you can buy kits where people pre-cut these to about that long, and so you have that much elastic to work with. I actually much prefer to work with a longer piece, and I waste less, and I'll tell you why. So if you have a short piece, say, it's a little shorter than it would be, but so you pull it tight, and then you cut off, you know, because you don't, once you pull it tight, you don't need all this. So you end up cutting off some every single time. So instead of working with a short piece and wasting some every time, I work with the longer piece, and then I don't waste as much. All right, so we've got everything we need. So first things first. So sometimes these get stuck in the leg and you have to shake it until it comes down. Can you see the cup in there?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna reach in, make sure you use needle nose pliers because you don't wanna damage the cup. And this is also why I made sure that the limb got nice and hot, because you have to pull that cup out of that little hole. Make sure you get the elastic. Sometimes it stays in there and you have to fish it out, but if you leave it in there, it'll rattle. So there's the cup. So we're gonna go ahead and get it set up and ready. So I'm using the cutter side of the needle nose pliers, and I'm just gonna crimp that nice and tight. You can get actual crimpers. I don't find that it makes a huge difference. All right, once you've got that together, you kind of turn it sideways and it'll go in better. So make sure you get the cup lined up correctly, because if you get it crooked, it will move around in there a little bit. So you want the cup touching all sides around the hole. I'm gonna show you 2 ways to do this. A lot of people like to use hemostats, which is, you know, they're locking, so you can hold it tight and then have both hands free to crimp. I never had hemostats until fairly recently, and it is possible to do this without them. Make sure you hold it tight so you don't let go and drop that cup in. Feed this through and put a ferrule electrical connector on the end of it. Again, make sure you always hold this tight. For the most part, I find that as tight as you can pull it is good collector tightness. So I get this all ready, get the cutters on there, pull nice and tight. I kind of test the tension a few times and then crimp. And then test it, see, nice and tight. And then I can go back in there and being careful, of course, not to hit the fabric, cut that off. So that's how to do it without hemostats. This time we're gonna do hemostats. Again, that's nice and soft. So sometimes 4mm just barely fits in through those holes, but like I said, it's the strongest. All right, make sure that is, see how you can see the edge of the cup? You want to make sure that it is as centered as possible so that it doesn't move around in there once you have it tight. As you're doing this, make sure you're getting the legs on the correct sides. It is really easy to put the wrong leg on and have the feet facing the wrong way.
We've done that before with our antique dolls.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm holding this tight. You could, if you preferred, here, why don't I show that? If you don't feel like holding that tight the whole time, if you've got hemostats, just lock that and then you don't have to hang on to it. And then while that is holding that still, I can get in with the cutter and crimp that. Now the hemostat there, it's a little harder to get this in. This is also where it helps to have the little size jewelry ones. But I crimped on both sides. I flipped it around and crimped on both sides to make sure I had a good crimp on that. There we go. They're about the same. I always check that. I am picky about how my dolls are strung, so I make sure that they're the same on both sides. Now on to the arms. Again, that's getting stuck, so. All right, if you have one that gets stuck, you can go in with the curved hemostat and pull it down. That does happen frequently where they get stuck in the limb. All right, there we go. Get that. The goal is not to damage it. I did nick it a couple of places, but the goal is not to damage these when you pull them out. And the best way to avoid that is to have the limb nice and soft. Crimp it nice and tight. Get this arm. This is probably going to go in a little rough since it's getting cool. There we go. Nice and centered. And as you can see, I totally forget to use the hemostats because I've done so many of these. I just do it quickly and not mess around with it. There we go. Tightly strung. Little empty.
Looks good.
Yeah, well now we get to talk about restuffing, which I think is one of the harder parts of restringing. Because if you don't get the stuffing in here correctly, it will make the legs sag just as though you did not just restring it. So there is little pockets of space between the limb cup and the fabric. And then it's important to get enough stuffing in the crotch and then in the butt and again around each side of the leg. When you restuff, kind of separate the stuffing a little bit. This is especially important in the old dolls that have the cotton fill because it gets really lumpy. So separate it, fluff it up a little bit, and work with small sections so that you can make sure this gets stuffed correctly. So I usually start by stuffing a fair amount of stuffing between the legs just to get those, to get a little bit of stability in that section of the body. And then I go straight to going around the front of the leg socket. This is a fantastic tool. This is a stuffing fork. And you can get this on Amazon. It's designed specifically for this. So it's got a little Can you see that? It's got a little grippy end to it, and that can grab the stuffing. Do it gently so that you don't accidentally tear the fabric. But if you're having a hard time getting the fabric down there, you can use that. A chopstick is a good tool as well to use, but it won't grab like the stuffing fork will. Some people use the handle of wooden spoons too, but I think that's a little bit big. Not what I would choose. Poking my finger way down into that crevice. And then once you've got, don't worry if it doesn't look quite right now. It's a little easier to go back and touch it up once you get some stability in the lower body. And turn it over, do the back side.
Remember at Build-A-Bear where you go and they just hook it up to that
right.
machine and it just allows it all in there?
Right. Well, Build-A-Bears don't have quite as many crevices. And the other thing is be aware of where the stringing is, because if you stuff around it so that it's pushed off to one side, it's going to affect how the doll feels. Make sure that you stuff around the back sides of the legs too, and fill the butt with enough stuffing too. It's easy to forget to get enough stuffing in there. Okay, at this point, I pick it up and look, and I don't like the wrinkles right there, so I'm going to use this and just really gently, again, you got to be careful so you don't accidentally poke it right through the fabric, since it's got a little pointed end. Just like push this down into there. Can you see it?
Totally. Yep. Got to be careful. I could see going straight through that fabric.
Yeah, if you push hard, it's going to. But this helps get it down around the legs so you don't get that wrinkled look around the legs. And sometimes there's something to be said for just using your finger and pushing it in there. Now, some of the bodies don't have a lot of room around the legs, so there's nothing you can do about this, but this one's got a fair amount of room. Once you have a little more stuffing further up too, it'll help to hold this in place. So I'm going to start stuffing the belly. You can work with a little bigger pieces of stuffing at this point, still fluff it, but since you're not doing the finer work of getting around the legs, you can use big handfuls of stuffing, whatever will fit through the neck. And I would flip it around periodically so you make sure that you're stuffing evenly on both sides, and keep going until you get to the armpit. That's the next where you have to slow down and be careful. I feel that I got up to the armpit on this side. I need a little bit more on this side. And then let's flip it over. At this point, start using smaller pieces again and stuff all the way around the arm cup. So that means the shoulder, the back side of the arm cup, and the front side of the arm cup. And make sure it's nice and tight all the way up to underneath the arm there. As you can see, there's still a fair bit of stuffing in here we've got to get in. So it's going to be a game of packing it all in. All right, let's get some more into the armpit there. So I'm going to put a little more on that side too. All right, same thing on this side. Stuff all around the arm cup, up into the shoulder, and then around the front. Now, that's pretty good. So we still have a fair amount of stuffing left, but because of the way we stuffed it, all this stuff can just go straight down the center between the arms. So at this point, I just use my thumb and shove it right down the center. And there you are. All of it fit. And as you can see, She's much better strung than she was. So if you've strung correctly, you won't have a big, or if you've stuffed correctly, you won't have a big lump of stuffing right there, and it'll be pretty easy to put her head on. So work the edges of that up around the flange on the head. I like to put their heads on backwards so their hair's not in the way as you tie the cord. So I tie it. Oops! Ooh!
Uh-oh.
Guess you're getting a new neck string. All right, I'm gonna use. So there's
the string broke.
Yeah, the string broke. Let's get the tape. This is gonna be the same thing that I was showing earlier of how to put a new neck string in. I actually saved these zip ties and use them as like a needle.
And while we are filming, Miss Holland Diane is cruising around. Good thing Stanley's here to keep a good eye on her.
Princess.
Yep, she is.
She's the doll shop princess.
She is the doll shop princess.
All right, so now we've got a new neck string on this girl. We're gonna put her head back on, and it'll all work the way it should have the first time. All right, so sometimes I pull the string a little bit to help get the head all the way in. It helps if you push down just a little bit while you're tying this first part of the knot. I use the first part of the knot to get the string tight enough. As you can see, you really have to pull this tight because you want this tight all the way around so that the inside of the flange doesn't show. And then I hold it with one finger while I finish off the knot. It does take some practice to be able to do that. And there you go.
Right on.
There she is.
Looks good.
All right, well, now that we've finished up this doll and got her restrung, I'm going to give you a tour through my project block. I have everything organized. So this is the tray for all the American Girl repairs. So that's Restringing American Girl. Here, this box is fantastic. I love this box because it has different trays. So this is for Restringing American Girl. This is what I use for restringing like 50s dolls. I have specific tools in there and bands and hooks that I use for those dolls. And then these two drawers, or these two trays, are all eyes from American Girl. And the tools that I use to adjust the eyes once I get them in to make sure that they're looking the right direction. So here's American Girl eyes. That's what it looks like inside. That's the weight and how the lashes are held in. And then there's the pegs and the casing, and that's how they sit and rotate. So there I've got eyes. Some of them are slated for repair. Like here, this is a fun repair that I'm gonna have to do at some point. So this eye, one of the pegs broke.
Wow.
Yeah, so this eye, I can replace that peg by heating up a paper clip and poking it through there and then clipping it off to the right length to replace the peg. Although I may not, it depends on how well that crack is hidden inside the eye. I might just have to replace this one, because I don't want that crack to show, which I'm not sure it will, but I don't want that to show. These are the good, or the eyes that are either going to go back in a doll or are going to be repaired and go back in a doll. Like here, let's see, one of these is silvered. So when these eyes silver and end up looking like that, what's happened is that paint, you see the round paint chip on the back, that is separating from the plastic, and that's what gives it the silver appearance. So in order to fix that, you have to pull off the old paint and repaint it. I have another tray of eyes. These are mostly the bad eyes. Ooh, I wonder if I've got a pair of melted ones to show you. Oh yeah. All right, so this is what happens when they melt. See how it's kind of oval shaped? This is what happens if someone overheats the head. And then if you look at, say, these eyes, it's nice and round in comparison. So this is why you don't overheat the head, kids. My other project is I've been working on how to 3D print these cups, because sometimes you lose them, or sometimes they, you open up a doll and instead of cups, they've got this business in there, which is what the doll hospital was using for a little while to replace cups. So I've been working on how to 3D print cups in order to
awesome.
replace them.
That's smart.
Yeah. So, and then in the top, we've got a whole bunch of stuff. So that's neck string. I've got a magic eraser. A lot of people use magic erasers to clean them, or you wet the magic eraser and just use it like that. I actually use it to get shines out, because if you use it dry, if you've got a doll that's got like a shiny spot where they fell and got a rub on the vinyl, you can actually use this to kind of buff it out and make it look matte again. And then I've got my little handheld drill for piercing ears, and more hemostats, glue. This is my my concession to getting old, headlamp so I can see things better. That's my my project box in a nutshell. I hope this helps. I enjoyed showing you how to restring a doll, restring an American Girl doll, and
You're good. And what is your website, Kathy?
I am againstdollodds.com, againstdollodds.com. Got to make sure you get the pun in there.
Yes. And we will put it into the video as well.
Right.
So.
And the same on Instagram and Facebook.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.